Aprilia said I could have one of these motorcycles. That one kind of seems easiest to get to. Only problem is, I kind of have to put it together. You heard me right. This thing right here is my new motorcycle that Aprilia has sent out to me so that I can go racing. There's more on that in just a little bit, and you're gonna wanna stay tuned because we've got like $50,000 worth of prizes that you can win just by watching videos. So definitely stay tuned. But we're here at the AF1 warehouse out behind the dealership because we have to take this motorcycle, which is a 2026 Aprilia Tuono 660 factory, from the box that it left the factory in and put it on the street. And in order to do that, you have to go through an entire set of checks and assembly to get your motorcycle ready to hit the road. And I figured it'd be fun to take you along for that ride. So first thing we gotta do is get this thing out of the box.
Back in the day, uncrating a motorcycle was kind of like assembling a giant Lego set that you didn't get to keep. Nowadays though, the bike is basically ready to go right out of the crate. In some cases you have to put the bars on, maybe a front wheel, or anything that keeps it from being able to easily stack it inside of a giant shipping container. Once you've got the plastic off the Tuono and you've unstrapped it from the wooden frame, it's actually pretty much ready to rock and roll, believe it or not.
Alrighty folks, there it is. You can see that the turn signals aren't on there yet, nor the mirrors. We also need to check the oil. We need to go over all of the fasteners and stuff to make sure that they are torqued down properly from the factory. That stuff is pretty bland and banal, so we're just gonna speed right through it. The most important thing though is, again, this bike right here is mine so that I can go racing. Me, Chase on Two Wheels, and 650 Ebe are going through this big series where we're going to be setting up these motorcycles and doing time trial races against each other over at NJMP later this year. There's a huge giveaway series that we're running for the next few months that you can participate in.
We're calling it the Aprilia Creator GP. We've teamed up with Aprilia, Alpine Stars, Cardo, Motivation USA, Moto Million, Moto America, and more, so that Chase on Two Wheels, 650 Ebe, and myself can see which of us is the fastest. It's me, by the way. But it's not just us who are going to be competing. You can get entered to win up to $50,000 in prizes. All you gotta do is click the link down in the description below or go to creatorgp.com to sign up, and you'll be entered to win automatically. But you can boost your chances to win prizes. There are codes embedded in every single one of the videos in this series. In fact, there have already been some in this video. If you redeem these codes, you'll be able to climb the leaderboard and earn yourself some even bigger prizes.
To give you an idea of how much stuff you could be winning, third place is going to win a Tech Air 5 Plasma, a Cardo Pack Talk Pro, a brake-free helmet brake light, and more.
We have a big party coming up in Austin for the Moto America Coda race at Motivation USA with Ebe, Chase, and myself, and we're also doing a meetup at the track. All of this is building up to a final showdown between the three of us and our big final giveaways.
So stay tuned to all of the videos in this series. Try to find as many of the codes as you can, and watch me whoop up on Chase and Ebe, because as the great Reese Bobby once said,
if you ain't first, you're last.
And with that, let's get this thing out on the road for some first impressions and start breaking this bad boy in. Alrighty folks, we're out here with the bike, and I wanted to go over some of the specs just in case you aren't familiar with this thing. So this has a 659cc parallel twin that is putting down 105 horsepower this year and about 50 foot-pounds of torque, while weighing in at 400 pounds, 399 to be exact. And an interesting thing is in order to like keep the weight down as much as they can, they actually included a lithium-ion battery in the bike, which is nice. Most manufacturers wouldn't do that. This has big, giant Brembos, which we're going to talk about in a second, as well as Öhlins front and rear. Now, I'm not 100% sure whether those are like top shelf Öhlins or mid or whatever, but it doesn't matter because we'll talk about this again later. This is one of the only bikes that actually ships with Öhlins front and rear at this price point. Speaking of the price point, $11,500 for this bike. $11,499 is what this thing will run you, and we're going to talk about the value prop too on the road because it's nuts. It is worth talking about the looks here. I know some people find it a bit polarizing. I've seen some people say that this like bottom part here kind of feels like it's sort of half finished, like it's missing some pieces, and you'd technically be right because a lot of this would be covered up by the fairings on the RS platform, but since we're dealing with the Tuono, it's half faired, and honestly this bike actually runs a lot cooler as a result of it. It's flowing a lot more air through the radiator and out the back, so I've noticed my oil temps are a lot cooler on this motorcycle. The factory only comes in the one colorway, but honestly, I mean, red and black, they're the Aprilia colors. It looks really sweet. So that's enough yapping. Let's get out on the road and shake this thing down because holy cow, is it surprising how good this is.
Okie dokie, so out on the road, what does this thing feel like right out of the box? Well, not right out of the box, after I've broken it in a little bit because I didn't want to immediately start wailing on it with like 8 miles on the clock. So the first thing that you're going to notice about pretty much any Aprilia 660 platform is how light this bike is. It's kind of staggering how quickly this bike dips into a corner. It's frankly impressive how light this thing is side to side. And I think part of that is helped by how wide these handlebars are. I swear to God, I have not felt a handlebar this wide since I got on my first Supermoto. I think the KTM 690 SMC-r has the widest handlebar I've ever ridden, but this is pretty damn close. This is like adventure bike wide, which is awesome. It means you get this really, really fine control, especially when you do like I like to, and grab it by the very end of the grips, when you've got 2 fingers on the grips, and you're really just using your thumb and middle finger to turn the throttle. The control you get out of this bike is so fine and so precise. This thing rides like a top shelf leader bike or hyper naked or whatever bike you can think of, because this thing is packing those Öhlins front and rear, which is a nice difference from a lot of the middleweights that like to throw Öhlins shocks on the bike and then some yellow forks that they were able to find to make it look like they've got matchy-matchy Öhlins. This is the only one that does that actually has proper Öhlins front and rear. So you really can feel the difference between, you know, even we'll call it an affordable set of Öhlins. Let's not assume that they're, you know, the top shelf, because they're not electronically adjustable, but these are still Öhlins forks, and they feel like Öhlins forks. They feel very, very good. However, I have noticed, especially at speed, because this thing is so light, that there's a little bit of this sort of thing going on when I'm turning at, say, like 90 miles an hour. There's a couple of big, long sweepers on the highway. And when the bike is moving quickly and the suspension is working, I think because the bike is so light, you get a little bit of wobble in the bars. It's not like, it's not a proper instability, at least I don't think it is. But it is there, and it is worth pointing out. The next thing I want to point out is how phenomenal the brakes are on this bike. I swear to God, I don't think I've felt a bike brake like this one does. Let me come diving into it. That's just one finger, man. One finger. And it's ready to throw me over the handlebars. I gotta believe that's down to the weight, combined with how good these brakes are, especially at the lever, that I would say the brakes are almost overpowered. They're almost too good for this bike. It's wild to say that. I don't think I've ever looked at a set of brakes and been like, you know what, we probably could have had Nissans. You know, it's nuts. First time I grabbed them, I was like, oh fuck, I gotta respect that lever. Now let's talk about the power on this, because we gotta talk about the power. So it's interesting, right? There's a good chunk of torque right out of the gate. When you're leaving a stop, that parallel twin is just good and torquey. I've been looking at some graphs, and basically everything that I've seen, the torque is basically flat. It's the like flattest torque curve I've seen outside of a triple. Power is a little bit more peaky. I'll pull up a dyno chart for you guys to take a look at. It's a little bit peaky on the top end, and it definitely feels like, at least from stock, and right now, given where the bike is in its break-in period, I'm not saying that like, oh, you go get the first service, you get the wrench taken off, and the bike wakes up. No, I just occasionally, when a bike breaks in, you might see a small change in the way the power is delivered because the motor's looser. But I will say it does feel like there's just a teensy bit of a lull in the power in the middle. Like you let it go, and then I can feel a U shape. I can feel right in the middle. It almost feels like VTEC. Like there's 200 RPM where it's just lagging and then it's going. I have to believe that's going to be down to emission stuff. I reckon that once we get a tune on here, a tune and a pipe and an intake, and we can actually let this thing breathe the way that Aprilia wants it to, that it'll work. But let's pop it into the individual mode, which that's one of the fun things about this bike that still blows me away. This thing has so much customizability in the modes that it's almost overwhelming. You look at the screens and it's just, whoa, there's so many blocks and levels and cubes and ATC, AEB, AEM, AWC, all the stuff, because it's all Aprilia engine braking, Aprilia engine map or whatever, engine management, I would reckon. There's so many levels to be adjusted through on here that and you can tailor every mode exactly to your liking. So let's say you want individual to be all balls, which is kind of how I have it set up. I have traction control at 3, which is basically kind of the lower end of the middle of how interruptive traction control can be. I've got the most aggressive throttle map, the least engine braking, so that I can coast around corners a little better. Because sometimes I don't like how immediate engine braking can be, especially on like parallel twins and V-twins. So it's nice to be able to dial that out of there. I got to imagine what they're doing is they're actually opening the butterfly just a little bit and still giving it gas, just so that it coasts and it doesn't drag. That's the only thing I can think that it would do. But individual does, with my more aggressive throttle maps and my less engine braking, it does feel more alive. But it doesn't feel like it's gonna whack you in the face with the power. It feels very linear and very progressive, and when you ask it for the power, it's like, okay, are you sure? And then we go. it gives you some time to consider your choices, whether or not you actually really do want full throttle around this corner, you know. And it's worth pointing out too that I have not really gotten it out to redline yet because I'm still breaking it in. To me, this motor feels like it's happiest at the very top of the power band. You know, between, let's say, 9 and 11.5. That seems like where this motor is going to be the absolute happiest. In fact, why don't I pull over here real quick and try to show you some of these modes. It's going to be hard because I got all my camera gear in there. But I'm not sure if you're seeing the dashboard, but if we dive in, it's back. Press and hold. Nope, that turns on the cruise control. Is it up? Maybe it's press and hold forward. There it is. Press and hold forward. You go into vehicle. Nope, it's not vehicle. It's riding modes. And then you can dial each one for both road and race settings, right? So if you have your time attack and your challenge, which I need to go through and read the manual and see what those are all about. But road, you've got dynamic, commute, and individual, and all of these represent, all of those bars represent the levels of adjustability. And then if you go in here to user, you can switch between road and race modes, right? I just have it in road for now. And then if you dive into vehicle, you can turn on the emergency brake hazards and stuff, which I have it down. You can enable the quick shifter, all sorts of stuff, right? Where the shift light is. It's nuts. It's nuts how much this thing has in it. You can even see your lap times and all that stuff. I guess now that we're back on the road, I can talk a little bit about the seating position. It feels a little bit more aggressive than my Super Duke. The handlebars are in about the same spot, and it feels like my rear sets are a little bit higher. The seat is really comfortable on this bike. It's actually really, really comfortable. The only problem is from the seat back where the passenger seat rest starts to the bottom of the tank, basically from trunk to skunk, is very tight. It's the most tight cockpit I've ever sat in. And if you don't put some tank grips on here and you're of the male persuasion, you may find yourself massaging your testiculars on the tank from time to time. That has happened. I have gone over some bumps and I have mushed the twig and berries. Not an enjoyable experience. Now, I do want to take a second here at the end and mention one of the things that I talked about in my first ride, which the like raw first impressions, and something that I'm going to come back to in the full review. I don't understand where Aprilia gets off getting you a product this premium for this price. As far as I'm concerned, I've ridden and reviewed so many different motorcycles at so many different price points. This is the greatest value for your dollar in the motorcycling industry, period, full stop, end of story. There is no better bike for your dollar. I don't, maybe you look at like a Navi, which is like $1,800 and you get two wheels and a teensy little motor and a sandwich compartment. But this has Öhlins, big Brembos, Brembo master cylinder, nice motor, an amazing level of technology, comfort, good looks. I don't get it. I don't get where, they can't be making money on this. It's like $11,749. That's the base price of an RS660. The only difference between this and the factory 660 is a handlebar and some fairings. That's it. And it's like $3,000 more expensive. I'm not complaining here, Aprilia. I'm really not. I'm just like, why? What? Like, how is this not the #1 selling motorcycle out there? And I got to imagine it's because people still think that the 660 platform has some reliability issues, which at this point it's basically been proven that they're rock solid. But I mean, I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. But this is just the start of what's going on with this motorcycle. There are 7 more videos coming, building all the way up to a final smackdown between myself, 650 Ebe, and Chase on 2 Wheels up in New Jersey, where we're going to be doing a time trial race to see who can lay down the best lap time on their bike. I'm going to be tuning this. I'm going to be putting an exhaust on it. I'm going to be modifying it. I'm going to be servicing it. This is going to be the most in-depth review I ever do of a motorcycle, period. Because I have so much time and I'm going to have so much experience with this thing by the time the review comes around. So stay tuned for all of that, and a huge reminder, there are codes in every single one of these videos that you can enter and get yourself better entries to win bigger prizes, as well as there's a whole bunch of discounts that you can use to get yourself some pretty killer gear. I know Motivation's got 5% off their stuff. We've got 10%, we've got 20%, all sorts of discounts down below. I am so thrilled to be a part of this. Holy shit, look at this water level. Oh my God. To give you guys an idea, last time I was out here, this whole thing was just a prairie. That's nuts. I have not seen the water level this high in Lake Travis in years. But anyway, as we watch those trees slowly drown, get yourself entered to win some cool prizes. Stay tuned to watch the rest of this series. We're gonna have so much cool stuff. I'm gonna go spin this on the dyno pre and post to see what kind of power this actually makes. All sorts of cool stuff. So stay tuned and get yourself entered to win. We've got 50 grand worth of prizes up for grabs. So all that is down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.